Who do you regard favorably in the Democratic Party? No one gets more than 10%. Like, zoom back to your high school civics class, however poorly you did there, I guarantee you remember the term checks and balances.
You have a lot of people that the pathway to Democratic candidacy is you're an activist. So that means you're good at chanting like a cult member.
Welcome to the Crypto Swamp Creatures, the show you never knew you needed and still don't want anyways. I'm Christopher Alexander, your blockchain and advocacy communications expert.
And I'm Justin Wallin, your guide through the often murky world of politics and polling.
Every week, we dive into the intersection of crypto, policy, and politics without taking sides. We're here to give you the straight, data-driven analysis that influences the decisions of those who want to win or want to be elected.
Think of it as a late 80s newscast, but with a twist. We bring you the serious stuff, but with a dash of sardonic wit and just a hint of irreverence.
So whether you're a crypto enthusiast, a policy wonk, or just someone who appreciates a data-driven approach, this is your place.
We bring you both sides, weigh the impact on crypto, and then we share what we use for show prep every week on our medium.
So remember, no one is as smart as someone who agrees with you, and now get ready to enter the no swamp zone.
Welcome back to the Crypto Swamp Creatures. Justin, there's just been amazing, a riot of color and disarray on the Democratic side in their response to the legitimately blistering pace that the Trump administration is moving at. Let's talk a little bit. There's a really interesting poll that came out about what's going on with the Democrats and why this matters for the price of Bitcoin and the price of crypto over the next 6 months to a couple of years.
Yeah, so let's just take a quick look at this. This is the money shot. This is a survey. It's a respected survey. It's run by CNN, operated by an independent research firm. And what you have here is favorable opinion of the Democratic Party over time. You see going all the way back to 2002. And in 2002, at that beginning point, 56% regarded it favorably. Hum around 45, bouncing around. Now, March 6, 2025, favorable opinion, 29%. Unfavorable opinion, 54%. It is the worst that it has ever been in the 22 years since they began tracking. And it's an astonishing number because keep in mind that it's not just 29% favorable and then a huge proportion of people saying, I just don't know. It's contrasted with the majority, 54%, who have an unfavorable opinion. And again, that is almost exactly the beginning in 2002 of people who had a favorable opinion. So it's a reverse. It's a 180 in the classic sense of the term. And it's remarkably disturbing for the Democratic Party. I think it's unsurprising given the total disarray the party seems to be in. We'll talk about it momentarily in terms of leadership, but there is no direction. There's a lot of squabbling. There's a lot of what I would call friendly fire. I mean, that's out of my time zone, but there's a lot of people shooting each other when there really should be cohesive. And the reality is they have no idea of how to move forward. And it's part of this severe operational hangover that's bleeding into an ideological hangover and stasis from the election. The Democratic Party is in a hell of a mess right now.
One bit of context that I think is useful for that poll, roughly 50% of the country are Democrats, although I think maybe that number might be going down a little bit. It's self-identified, but half the country is supposed to hate you in that poll. So whenever they talk about Donald Trump's at 47%, that's actually a pretty good number, especially for Donald Trump. That only means, and this is a little bit of an exaggeration, but only 3% of Republicans hate him, and every single Democrat. It doesn't really work like that in real life, but for context, what is that? A little more than half of Democrats like their own party right now.
Right.
That's a staggering number, and I'm curious what your thoughts are on this, Justin. There's sort of, I think, the argument, right, and a lot of it's sort of this battle over the soul of the party. There's a group of people that say need to move back towards the middle. There's a group that's like, we're not, air quotes, progressive enough.
Right.
So where do you think that lands? Because there is one other question in that CNN poll that I'm curious what your thoughts are, and it asks about who's the leader of the Democratic Party right now, and statistically the answer was no one.
Right. Right. Let's just show that
yeah.
because it's a great illustration. You saw this, and it's here. Who do you regard favorably in the Democratic Party? No one gets more than 10%. Look at that. That's, I think, what they call a diaspora. 1 to 10%. Bernie Sanders,
by the way,
8%.
The doctrinal military term for that is a goat rope. Yeah, I'm stunned. So Jasmine Crockett sounds like she's at Sturgis or maybe a Marine drill sergeant. I guess they're called drill instructors. My apologies. Cursing, doing interviews. One time she was actually, and it looked like coach. I don't know if that's to her credit or not. On an airplane, getting ready to take off, doing interviews. Is this some advisors, consultants' idea that you're going to show you're rough and tumble and ready to fight? Like how effective is sounding like an inarticulate barroom brawler in terms of messaging typically? What's kind of your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think they could take a lesson from, the poor branding in terms of overall party, not within your, if you're in a hard blue area or a hard red area, you can say whatever you want that's, red meat or blue vegetable, and get away with it and really get people to love you. But you do damage to the party, right? And they should look back and see what happened over the past, 8, 12 years with the Freedom Caucus, or whatever iteration they've called themselves over time. And how that particular obstinacy and flame throwing has damaged the cohesion and efficacy of the Republican Party, which ultimately government is about some degree of compromise. And right now, in today's climate, you would be forgiven for thinking that if you read the newspapers, if you pull open the New York Times, or even to some extent the Wall Street Journal, or certainly your local chipmunk, that everything is being run at the government by diktat. Turns out legally that's not the way things happen. There are committees, there are judges, there are a variety of what we call checks and balances. So we take a zoom back to your high school civics class. However poorly you did there, I guarantee you remember the term checks and balances. Those checks and balances are still working. And in Congress, in order to pass, for example, this budget on last Friday that allowed the government to keep open, it required what's called compromise. Compromise means people doing things that they're not 100% entirely happy with in order to achieve a greater common good. Chuck Schumer, did this, and now he is being pilloried by his side, who are saying he should have shut down the government. We lost this incredible opportunity to tell our story. I would beg them to again look back at the repeated failures of the Republican Party, which has owned the catastrophes of shutting down government and smoked their own exhaust, I'm being kind about that, and said, at least people are listening to what we think about. That's not what happened in every single shutdown that Republicans were involved with. They shut down the government. The American public had largely zero clue what the argument was about, and the only thing they cared about was the federal government didn't work anymore, it wasn't functioning, and that's called ineptitude. And what you owned then as the Republican Party was incompetence. That was your brand. That's what you communicated, and that's why you failed as a party. It drives me nuts to see parties do this. Schumer, with extraordinary wisdom, went and swallowed a very distasteful pill. Let's not be clear about it. I mean, Schumer did not want this bill. It is the antithesis of what he wanted. And yet, in order to save the party, and now he can paint it in it's better for the country, and I agree with him. But what he did was to save the party from the same quagmire and turmoil that the Republican Party seems to repeatedly love to embrace and wrap themselves in. He avoided this, and he's being pilloried for it. And it's just a fundamental misunderstanding of how the American people view capability, responsibility, an efficacy at the federal and at federal government level.
It doesn't help that every time the Republicans did it, the Democrats said they were science-denying, racist Nazis for shutting down the government. And then suddenly they're like, we need to shut down the government. Well, okay.
It does seem a little bit inconsistent, if you will.
I saw reports say that basically the Republicans were all but daring the Democrats to do it. I think it would have been disastrous. I think you're right. And senators have really struggled now as candidates for president because senators have to compromise. Republicans could challenge each other to duels, wear stupid outfits. Some of them, I don't understand. I think if you gave them a GED test, they'd fail it. My favorite Mark Twain quote, you're an idiot, sir, and a congressman, but I repeat myself. So it's a different game when you're in the Senate. It's 6 years, not 2. They did it on purpose so that you would be measured in what you're doing. It's why the Senate matters more in a lot of cases. The vice president doesn't preside over a tie vote in the House of Representatives because nobody cares against the system and the checks and balances in it. So yeah, I think he's the steady hand, and apparently his junior senator, Kristen Gillibrand, was screaming like, we can't shut down the government in a meeting. Those are our reports. Still a steady hand, maybe a bit excited in the moment.
Sure.
But yeah, I can see where the more competent Democrats are like, we're going to turn into the Socialist Tea Party and go down the drain. Right. And I think the damage is even greater, the risk, if they go full on progressive than the Republicans did for, my favorite, crosswalks or government authoritarianism. We have to ban them. And, we should issue guns in kindergarten and everything else the Tea Party won.
Right. And by the way, you just put your finger on exactly the challenge that Democrats are having right now. You have, in the eyes of the American people and most people, you have, as an elected leader or any brand, up to 3 themes that people have the capacity to retain. Let's just make sure that people understand. I'm not saying the capacity to retain meaning they're idiots. I'm saying that's what people have to retain in terms of public policy because they have real life going on, right? They have actual stuff going on that people very easily and unfairly forget in the halls of governance, right? I mean, your average American has got stuff going on that's existential, that really matters. But 3 is a pretty good number. Imagine, if you will, trying to sit down and think, what are the 3 key goals that the Democratic Party wants to accomplish in the next, well, it's now March, so let's say the next 8 months. No one knows.
Can I try? Change the temperature of the planet, end all racism as we know it, and stop anything Donald Trump can do, even if it works.
There you go. And these are, I think you're exactly right. And you insert whatever kind of platitude here if you disagree with Christopher, and you'll be right too. Because what we don't see is
that's impossible.
What you don't see is concrete. We're going to put a chicken in every roost, right? In every hut. We're going to improve your roads. We're going to remove murderers and rapists from your communities. Take whatever concrete thing you may wish to, and whatever it fits within your space. For example, if you are an environmentalist, then something concrete. We are going to improve the purity of streams and rivers in X part of the United States by X%, and this is why. That's a pretty terrible theme because I just thought up it right now, but it's concrete.
It's still better than what you got.
There's nothing concrete that's coming around other than a continuation of what we saw in the campaign, which ultimately, again, the campaign was brilliant in terms of Kamala Harris getting a branding in a very short amount of time. The campaign did that brilliantly. What it failed is it then pivoted to, we're better than that guy. And you do not win hearts and minds by saying we're better than that guy or that gal. You win hearts and minds. People know you're different. That's why you're opposition to them. You win hearts and minds by saying, this is what I'm going to do that's different, and this is how it's going to change your life, because these parts of your life we know you think suck. That's it. It is absolutely not rocket science, but it takes.
And I do think an issue the Democrats need to face here is you have a lot of people that the pathway to Democratic candidacy is you're an activist. So that means you're good at chanting like a cult member and waving bumper sticker signs. You don't have a single policy idea that's more than 7 words long. How long is from the river to the sea? I think that's 7. So you don't have any real world experience.
A good old anti-Semitic slogan. Roll it out.
You're an activist, and then you're elected. And so what you know is activism. So everything is an existential crisis. Everything is the end of the earth or the end of democracy. Like almost every major position now that the Democrats have, you could start by saying "end of," as in it's an extinction event. They're like the ultimate panicked, neurotic ant in an Emily Bronte novel.
It's just that is absolute brilliance. I mean, not to blow smoke up your butt, but you're absolutely right. This is the perfect example of the boy who cried wolf. And the boy's been crying wolf for the past 3 decades, 4 decades, and consistently more so. And people aren't stupid. Contrary to what you right now in the halls of Congress, Democratic and progressive folks are squealing that, oh my God, the American voter is such an idiot. They're not. They recognize the whiff of BS when they get it. And the whiff is pretty strong because all of those catastrophic world-ending things simply haven't happened. But what has happened is that the daily life of the average American voter has gotten worse in some way. It's gotten worse in their daily activities, their daily life, what they're able to afford, the enjoyments, the pleasures that they're able to enjoy, the future that they're able to plan for, and the confidence that they will be able to be taken care of in their aging years or take care of their family and friends in their aging years. These basic things, there's been a dramatic drop in confidence in this, and this is not what you should have in a first world country. And
no.
Get it. That's called unfairness, and unfairness is a powerful, powerful motivator.
So finally, bringing it all back to crypto and Bitcoin, when we look at this disarray, I think in the short term, it provides opportunity because as we're going to talk about it in the next segment, there's a lot moving with cryptocurrency at the state and the federal level. There's nobody really, well, there is someone. It's Elizabeth Warren, Senator Elizabeth Warren. But there's no one out there. I don't think, did you get a percent on that CNN poll? There's no one out there. The party's not coalesced around kicking crypto anymore. I think part of I think they're shell shocked from the number of things Trump has done, and B, they're just in disarray as you've pointed out. So for now, they're not really looking at crypto. Trump isn't really looking at crypto either all that much, although he's done more than anybody else, but it's pretty quiet. So I think for the short term, you're not going to have any negative things happening, detrimental policies or anything, or even messaging. God help us if crypto goes way up, Trump gets excited about it. Anyone who owns Bitcoin will probably be called a Nazi for the next year. But hopefully the adults, well, I guess that's not going to work. Hopefully reasonable people start running the Democratic Party again. That's good for the country, and it would definitely be good for crypto.
Yeah, the country works well when there are two rational opposing sides. That's the whole point of it. All right.
And that's all for this week on the Crypto Swamp Creatures.
We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the intersection of crypto, politics, and policy.
Remember, the data doesn't lie, and neither do we. Well, not about anything important anyways.
Until next time, stay informed, stay skeptical, stay out of the swamp.